Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Kodak Black record, Pistolz and Pearlz, with Z's on the end, because you know that the album is significantly cooler that way. Despite the fact that he is incredibly popular, calling Kodak Black a decent rapper would be pushing it. I mean, he's not on the same level of awfulness as Tom MacDonald or Hopsin, of course. I mean, that's a bar lower than the boiler room of hell, of course, but at the same time, it's something that is worth pointing out, that Kodak doesn't even have a single solid project under his belt, despite his activity in the rap scene dating back to the early 2010s. That's not to say that anything that Kodak does is inherently bad, that's simply not true, and that would be incredibly biased of me to say, but at the same time, it's kind of impressive the level of consistent lack of quality that he manages to achieve on a regular basis. I kind of have to give him props for that in a weird way. His latest studio album, Pistolz and Pearlz, has its own ambitions, without question, but ultimately it just doesn't work out, similar to most of his other albums up to this point. I feel especially bad for any hip-hop journalists out there that have been covering Kodak since the beginning of his career, because it seems like every single album he releases, he just goes and trips right into the same pits that he always does, that always ruin his albums, because frankly, his latest studio album is just filled with more of the same issues that have been plaguing him for years at this point. The album is incredibly bloated, the material is generally speaking a little to a lot too samey, it all just kind of feels like the same song repeated over and over, and none of it warrants a runtime of over an hour. Meanwhile, there are only 3 features, or technically 3 songs with features on them, throughout this entire album, despite the fact that there are 21 songs, and Kodak just does not have enough strength as a solo performer to warrant that little amount of features on such a long and at times genuinely stressful to listen to album. It feels like it never ends because it's just Kodak repeating himself over and over with no secondary voice to come in and at least break things up a little bit. And look, I'll be totally honest, the middle section of Pistolz and Pearlz isn't half bad. It's not good, don't get me wrong, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. There are even a couple of catchy songs on there, like Church on Saturday and Trying to Figure Why. These songs aren't great, absolutely not, but at the same time, they're pretty catchy, and they're solid for basic southern trap hip-hop, and generally speaking, more importantly, they stand out a lot more than your average Kodak Black song, which I guess isn't really saying a lot, but at the same time, I still think it's worth noting for the sake of this exclusively being a Kodak Black album. Unfortunately, extremely mind-numbing and predictable songs like That For Real and Follow Me, these songs that sound like every single other Kodak Black song that he's put out within the past couple of years, make up the vast majority of the track list. I mean, there are some decent moments here that, again, save it from being a total travesty, but a couple of solid moments on an otherwise incredibly long and boring album is nothing to really write home about. To cut a long story short, Pistolz and Pearlz may as well be composed of the exact same 3 or 4 songs repeated ad nauseum with different titles attached to them each time, and one of those songs happens to have an incredibly forgettable feature. That's the general vibe that one gets listening to this album from front to back. I'll be totally honest, Kodak has put out worse albums in the past. He has put out significantly worse albums, if I'm being totally honest, but at the same time, his latest effort is just another example of how he refuses to change. Pistolz and Pearlz faces the exact same problems that he's been facing in the context of his discography for years at this point, and he's doing nothing at all to mend them, and as such, the result is sort of the kind of definition of insanity, the same thing over and over again, expecting it to land a little bit more this time. And once again, it just doesn't. Kodak Black has potential as a rapper, there's no question there, but with this fact that he just refuses to change in any way whatsoever, from his flow to his general persona to his overall presence within the context of hip-hop, he won't even change the types of instrumentals that he raps over. It all just feels so pointless and dull. I'm going to give this record 2 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.